on the 60-acre or so landfill, there were 5 groundwater monitors when there should have been 10. The landfill that's supposed to contain just up to a certain amount of landfill was so way beyond, what was filled in there was so way beyond the liner that there were areas that were not lined. There was a lot of information that was critical, and they wanted the landfill owner to please supply Shaw Environmental, which for anyone I understand in the business from a lot of environmental lawyers downtown and some of the big environmental groups, Shaw is a very reputable, credible company. They wanted from the owner to have the groundwater data since the EPA files were illegible and missing. It's at that point that I found no further records here in Buffalo Grove, and that's why I said, what happened to Shaw? And then it was dropped. I found out that they dropped the study for various reasons. Trustee Brimm said because they were no longer going to have a soccer field. But as you just heard me read from the actual report, it was due diligence to annex in this property. Well, because we never finished, we never followed through and completed any of what was Shaw was saying was needed to be done. For instance, when you picture a huge rectangle of a landfill, and you have four groundwater monitors right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the east end. And then you have one in the northwest corner. That's what was monitoring the area. I won't go into what the findings were, but there was reason that it was necessary that they take this further. And it never did go further, but we did annex it in. My concern, and what concerns me now, and I still, maybe there are some answers tonight. What concerns me is that when you give a landfill your village's name, as we've heard Trustee Brimm say in the past, you cannot unilaterally amend an annexation. So if there was a problem, the landfill's ours. It's in our community. What troubles me and concerns me is that landfill owners are liable for their land. It's called cradle-to-grave liability, and they have to be responsible and remediate their land. I don't understand why our government did not say to the owner, these are huge indications of what is going on there, and you need to fix this right now. I don't know why. I would love to hear why. And I think there's a lot of answers. I think there's a lot of answers that are really very important, and I think that the land really does need to be addressed. And the whole thing to me is actually quite shocking. So I wanted to hear the audio. I wasn't really sure if the manager had discussed it with all of the trustees. That's the only way I could have known because all the paper trail was gone. As far as, remember, I FOIA'd this in Buffalo Grove. I should have received this. I should have received it. It had all the words in it, landfill, land and lakes, it had everything. I didn't receive it. But when I went to Lake County and I FOIA'd it, I got it. That in itself is bothersome, but I'm not even making a big to-do of that because I'm more concerned about the safety, the environment, the impact. But obviously something was not right about this. So then, to top all that off, then the audio is missing too. The whole thing, you think it's a movie. Seriously, it's incredible that this really is happening. So, I don't know, do the trustees, do you remember this evening? Do you remember this evaluation?
Trustees, please speak your piece. People will have a chance to respond.
Oh, okay, well let me ask you, President Harstein, can I ask you, because you were our mayor then. Do you remember the review of this landfill? Do you know why you stopped the Shaw study?
I explained that a few moments ago. I will be happy to explain it when you're finished with your comments. I don't want to interrupt your time. You have 4.5 seconds, 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. 4.5 seconds. Okay, well, can I hold off my 4 minutes to the others' comments so I can break it up a little bit? No, you may not. You have one. You may not. You may not. You have 10 minutes during each item on the agenda. You have 4 minutes to finish anything you want to say. President Harstein, in a debate, it's easier to talk back and forth. Can I possibly just hold off my 4 minutes? That seems a little stringent that you wouldn't allow that kind of conversation. I might have a question to what one of the other trustees might say. That's fine. We'll stop. We'll give you a couple minutes after everybody else. You may not speak any further now. You've got up your time. I will allow other people to speak. You said I have 4 minutes left. Thank you. Trustee Brimm.
I think we have discussed this with, first of all, I'm not sure what this discussion has to do with this motion that's already been passed, but I'll address what we have to. And I think we have already discussed several times with Trustee Stone as far as why we stopped the environmental report. At that time, my recollection was that there was 2 items on the agenda, and we had 2 lawyers from Rice and Zimmerman there. And obviously, if you have 1 lawyer, it takes X amount of time. 2 lawyers, it's exponential. It's a lot more time. And we had some significant litigation that was going on with Wheeling regarding the golf course. And we spent a lot of time with that. And I believe my recollection was that virtually the entire time was spent on that litigation. And since we did not have the report from Shaw Environmental, it would have been impossible to have discussed the results of that report since we hadn't gotten it for another 2 months. I don't ever actually remember discussing in any context the results because at a certain time we decided not to go forward. Trustee Stone is correct. We were trying to, at one point, we were considering purchasing the property either outright or through condemnation for purposes either with the park district for soccer fields. There was some discussion, maybe a little miniature golf course, a driving range, etc. We started talking about that. Part of our due diligence in purchasing it, as Larry Freeman talked about last time, when somebody purchases property or mortgages, they need those environmental studies. When they annex property, you don't get that. And I think anybody who's in municipal government will acknowledge the fact that you don't do environmental studies when you annex property. The village doesn't do so. So we were starting to do our due diligence, if you will. The environmental company was employed. The reason for the grant was because we wanted to pay for that investigation. That's what that money came to us for, and you even stated, for investigating the condition. That's our due diligence. We got the money, we paid them a certain amount of money. At a certain point, we heard from the Park District, Mr. Balling heard from the Park District that they were not interested because of several factors. One factor was the fact it was on the edge of our village, not centrally located. They wanted to have it more centrally located. And secondly, they didn't have the funds in which to participate. We were not going to do it. We're not in the business of public recreation. So we decided to stop the project and not go forward, not to purchase it, not to condemn it. At that point, it would have been foolish for us to continue spending money on due diligence when we had no obligation, no idea to do so. Not unusual. What we did was perfectly normal. There has never been a discussion, in my recollection, at that executive session about any results from any environmental study. We hadn't gotten it we wouldn't have gotten it for 2 more months. To imply that there was something nefarious going on there, I understand that you'd like to do it, but it just isn't proper. And I'm sure, there are people there that you have respect for. Trustee Rubin was there, and I'm sure you could contact him, and he'll, I'm sure, tell you the same thing, that there was nothing that we did that was unusual and that we didn't try to hide anything.
Thank you. Trustee Trelling.
Thank you. First thing, I'd like to just correct one thing, Trustee Brimm, that you stated, and I know you probably just spoke inadvertently, but you made reference to the second item of litigation was between Buffalo Grove and Wheeling, and you made reference to the golf course. It was actually regarding the bike path, if I remember correctly.
No, it was not. No, it was not. This was related to the golf course litigation. The minutes specifically related to the Wheeling Park District. This was the litigation over the annexation.
Excuse me.
This was over the annexation.
Now I've got it's correct. That's correct.
Which was more involved than the other, which was
a very protracted litigation.
You're right. You're right. My comments are similar. Let me take a step back first. The first thing is that, Trustee Stone, I understand your concern. And I, too, also am concerned about, let's start with the minutes, if you will, first. The tape and having the security of the tape. I am also concerned about that and that they be cataloged in some way and that we also have the ability that in a secure environment. I personally, I'll tell you, I never looked at any of the results that were presented by Shaw. The so-called boxes of information or whatever, the information you may have received from Lake County. I personally never saw it. I delegated that, if you will, to staff to do their job and present a report to us. And that's what, that's the proper way of administering us as a policy. We merely, we're not the people who are responsible for, if you will, reviewing every single document of every single report that's prepared by a consultant. We just rely on staff to do their best efforts and then report to us. And by merely annexing it in, we now will derive hopefully all of the benefits of having that property within the village relative to any future development that hopefully will occur. And by us annexing it in, ensured that potential for revenue, and it's not revenue at any cost.
Trustee Sussman.
Does anyone remember how much money was saved by not continuing with the Shaw environmental study?
Around 15 to 20,000.
I believe that there was probably additional money that was also quantifiable with regard to doing different tests, and I don't think those we don't even know exactly what those were. There would have been additional costs for specific tests and
yeah, it could have been exponential because we don't know what eventually what would have been done if we were going to move forward and purchase it. What kind of, as President Harrison said, what was going to be necessary. But that wouldn't have been our, as a contract purchaser, that would have been our responsibility to ask for it, but not as a village.
The board passed $25,000 towards the evaluation. At $11,800, we stopped them. So the balance of that money, I'm not sure where that is, and that's actually not what I was worried about. I spoke to the people at Shaw Environmental, and it would have been beyond the $25,000 that we committed. Maybe there would have been another $15,000 or so. I'm not going to get into the findings tonight. I just don't want to go there, but when the findings are out and you read them, you'll understand exactly why it is that I spent the time I have foying and looking into this. It's interesting because Trustee Brimm, you said you didn't have the information. I have in front of me on April 14th to the President and Board of Trustees. Staff met on April 13th with our consultant Shaw Environmental to review the status of their public record. You didn't know of it till June. I can only tell you that the record shows that you were in a meeting when they discussed it April 18th, 2005. I don't know what to tell you, but you can't say it didn't happen. It's here. It's in April 2005. You were at the village board meeting. I knew of the topic only because of this. That's why I FOIA'd the tape that turns up missing. I don't know exactly what you're telling me, that you didn't know of this review. You were there at the meeting, but you didn't know of it. I mean, President Hartstein, you were there.
As I said, I know there was, but the best of my recollection, there was a status report, and we were talking about litigation. I do not remember any specifics other than the fact that there was that's all I remember. I do not remember any specifics.
Okay, well, let me
I do not remember hearing any specifics.
Okay, and I'm not saying
and I don't want to cut into your time.
You're right. I'm sorry, and I'm not saying that you did hear of it. That's why I wanted to hear the audio. I wanted to know what you heard of. That's all. But let me tell you that there were things that that you would definitely, I think, remember is that the way that this landfill was permitted versus when you permit a property and you say it's going to be inspected for what it's permitted for, there's an issue that when you put inside the landfill things that it's not permitted for.
You have about a minute left or thereabouts.
Okay, well, I guess this isn't important enough to go over time, huh? I think I'll just leave it there. Let me just say that between the gas venting and vegetation that was dying and all sorts of things that certainly I think would have caught your attention. You were the president of our community. I would like to think that you didn't see it because I can't imagine you would have decided that this was not worth pursuing, but all of you, including the trustees that were sitting on the board, that's why I wanted to hear the audio, to know if you've seen of it. No one has asked me to see this. I have been... You know that that I've been FOIAing for many reasons, but yet none of you have asked me what is it what do I have? Did I find something? I find the whole thing unbelievably concerning. I mean, we're in government, and if you're not worried about the environmental impact of our people and others, you were at the meeting the night of the review. It seems that you don't understand specifically, remember specifically what was discussed. It seems like there was nothing alarming discussed to you. And if that's so, then groundwater issues, what was in the groundwater, the lack of groundwater monitors, the lack of liner, being permitted for something that was not true to what was inside of there, lack of leachate collection, runoff water. I mean, there's so many issues that there was nothing right about it, actually. There was no good news, but you all let it go. 2005, 5 years ago. I'd like to know why.